was thinking about my topic, which today in my series is really on recovery from harm in these spaces. Boy, the line came to me, there's nothing new under the sun, and I thought, where does that come from? Amazingly, it comes from Ecclesiastes in the Bible. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. And I tell you what, from a space of harm in a Buddhist community, that is true and it's heavy. So what does it mean when you're harmed in a Buddhist space? Quick summary, I was harmed in January of 2023. I tried to deal with it with the individuals who led the organization. They failed. So 7 weeks later, I appealed to their ethics committee, the Institutional Ethics Committee. A month in, they were failing. And I was in study mode, Dharmic study, and I was in practice mode. But this piece of art came out of me. The isolation and the despair and the sense of craziness. And I'm not an artist, but I was like, harm is at the center of the Dharma, which is the teachings of the Buddha. So from this art, I started this inquiry of like, what is recovery? What does recovery mean when you're harmed? For me, it was recognizing. For me to recognize, I needed resources. Now my resources had been the study of the Dharma and direct relationship with a teacher and a sangha, a community. I had to set those aside because those actually were making me crazy. I thought I was crazy. I started picking up second wave feminists. I started picking up Audre Lorde. I started finding in these other resources outside the Buddhist sphere, I started finding reflections of what I already was encountering in myself, that everybody in this Buddhist space was like not getting, that was making me feel crazy. So first of all, the individual who harmed me, white, middle-aged male, one might consider perpetrators of gender-based violence, it was very gendered, are opportunistic offenders. They can do it because the chance they know that they actually won't be held accountable. Turned out this man had many harms in that community and had never been accountable. So why I expected accountability came from my lack of seeing what was really happening in the community. And then the negative repercussions for reporting abuse, it was all doubled down. The abuse was way worse after I reported it than prior. It feeds back into the institutional culture. I was like, oh my gosh, they get it. Harm is institutional. Many years of custom and secrecy and denial defend the crimes of patriarchy, their crimes of impunity. And the betrayal from the institution that I experienced, which is way greater than the betrayal from the individual, white male, it happened because I was seeking redress in vain. And I was not seeing it in people around me because people know not to, they dare not do it because what happened to me would happen to them. Harm had been happening in that community. I was speaking up. All right, as I've said in a prior speech, I'm a woman in my 50s. I'm not new to like the impacts of patriarchy and misogyny, but in this space, it shocked me. It was the last place I expected, a space that's dedicated to non-harming. So it helped me when I resourced with other oppressed identities that were in the Buddhist space. So Lama Rod Owens is a man of color. Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams is also of color. Patriarchies in Buddhism. They have experienced it. That resource really helped me. Okay, gaslighting, it's a real thing. I didn't know it was a real thing. I understood it as a concept. When I would say things to people, the leaders, the authorities, I would say things like, that doesn't feel caring to me. They would say, this is care. I just said that's not care. They said once to me, let's give him this practice that I had signed up for. Let's give it to him. And I said, well, are you asking or telling? Because if you're asking me, I get to say no. I never got an answer. He got to practice. Weaponization of the teachings. I was experiencing this, and when I read this account by a woman named Talia Newland, who wrote a book about a Tibetan culture where there was egregious sexual abuse, the teaching that good and bad and right and wrong are a matter of perception, and that what's most important for your happiness is how you think about something. I heard that again and again in a private conversation with my teacher when I was trying to have him recognize that his speaking to the student led to this backlash on me. The teacher said, we can't know that my speaking to him led to the backlash. It's like, well, yeah, obviously we're not in his head, but would you tell a person of color that you don't know he was pulled over because he's black by the police officer? Like, what is knowing? What is knowing? Victim blaming and empathy. All right, empathy is instead of empathy. Empathy is empathy for the him. Whether it's the perpetrator or whether it's the teacher who's male, it's thinking of that person. I was actually told by the teacher who's the abbot, he's not aggressive with every woman. Yeah. And the excuses for perpetrators. When I was pressed to give up that practice for this man, I was told, he needs it more than you do. Shame. Okay, Brene Brown, queen of shame and vulnerability, right? The amount of times I left the face-to-face teaching with my teacher, red hot, burning. The shame of questioning what he was telling me. One time I said, I need you to stop talking. It keeps getting worse, and he kept talking. The shame of showing up in a way that the teachings tell you exactly not to show up. That this person, this teacher, is actually reflecting you back to yourself. Not that they might be projecting onto you. So that experience of shame and all the resourcing I was doing while I was still in practice led to that final face-to-face teaching with this teacher where I got up and I bowed my way out of the room and I realized it's his shame. It's his shame. He is spiritually gaslighting me. And that helped me leave. So, this is where the story gets fun and it gets less heavy, is I left. And I started doing more art. I'm like, this art led me to actually the truth, which it took me a while to practice into understanding fully in myself. So I started doing art, and part of my art I'm going to share with you today, part of it was musical, okay? So, where response to harm is not simple, I started listening to this. There we go. And things started picking up for me. Harm is institutional. Guess who I found? You guys can get up and dance with me. And Buddhist spaces are no different. All right, you guys with me still? You hearing it okay? Enough to get the gist? All right, gaslighting is a thing. It really gets raucous with gaslighting, baby. Okay. Shame, victim blaming, empathy, and my realizing it was not mine. Who else but the Indigo Girls? recognizing in this bigger picture as I moved and got going, I realized that what I'd been through had so much to do with silence, which is so fundamental to the Buddhist precepts. The silence was deafening as I was trying to fight for my rights and justice. And there's no place more silent than a zendo. And silence, internal, external, as a path to freedom. No, the dark side of silence is that we hide within it, or we use it to oppress or collude. From a teacher. And then another survivor. I really tried at first to sit after being abused, but it became unbearable. Movement, social movement, physical movement, dancing. Okay, really, freedom is found through this guy. Women, even when they are not silenced, they still pay a high price. There's nothing new under the sun, including resistance. These are references I made in this talk. All people of color, mostly women. I was so inspired by my little playlist that I created my own playlist in resistance, which I shared with many members of that community. Most of you never got back to me. Recovery for me was to recognize, to be creative, which in itself was resistance. There is nothing new under the sun. It's all here, but I can tell you where I stand now is way more free than when I sat still and quiet looking for freedom. So let's get free!